is what it's all about. The Yankees, out of any team in the league, are the best equipped to handle a blow like this.
I think there is a higher power at play here. He's due law of averages. That dude is the ultimate scrub. It's trash. Yeah. Every person you have in there is fucking trash.
Next game, you're going to see a big performance. You can see it in the end of the game, and I'm just totally stoked and excited for this.
And we are back. Welcome to another edition of the Sports Port here on a Thursday, and we have a special edition here. It's Barnes, it's Zach, and it's Michael. How you guys doing today?
I am doing good. How about you?
Pretty good. Exciting time in the world of sports. It's just kind of crazy. All four major sports in session this week, which is kind of crazy. I think they call, I forgot what, maybe it's the sports apocalypse, or I don't know. They call it something like that. It only happens like 1 or 2 weeks a year, whatever the case may be. Exactly. So yeah, we have a special show here today, a lot to get to, but let's start with the comments. Looks like Michael Butka starting us off here.
Get to those. Okay. Michael Butka says, yo, yeah, Barnes. Oh, give me 1 second. Sorry. No worries. You're good. Barnes, imagine JJ Redick, D'Lo, and I chilling on Venice Beach. Sorry. Monitors coming in. Okay. With a couple beers in the strong sun.
I mean, why not, Michael, right? Why not?
He says, also, we have a trash fest for Thursday Night Football
tonight. You know what's sad? I mean, I don't know what you think, Zach, but like, I'm not saying it's like a great game by any means, but also, I mean, we've had a lot worse. Like, it's not like awful. Plus, I didn't realize both Cup and Nakua might be back. So then that makes it actually a good game.
Yeah, I think the Rams have struggled because of injuries, but I think they're going to turn it around. I have a good feeling about them.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, those are two of their most important players other than Stafford.
Yeah, definitely. So I think it'll be a good game.
And then something about the Best Western.
The Best Western in Inglewood had an outdoor pool where you could see planes flying into LAX. Really cool.
Wow. That sounds pretty dope.
Matthew Gabriel says, let's go. Come on. Get in there.
Matty boy.
Josh B says, yo, what's up, family? One more day till we get this thing going. Let's go, Yankees. Hashtag
let's
TCA,
go, Josh B.
Sport. Anthony Materiello says,
who's that? Is that a new subscriber, Michael?
Says Best Westerns might be the greatest hotel ever.
Down and dirty. Just what you need.
Tommy Donovan says, What's up, gents? Eastern Conference Final rematch tonight, LGR.
Let's go, Rangers.
Josh B says, welcome back, Z. Thank you. Appreciate it. And he says, Sports Equinox.
That's what it is. I was close. So couple things to get started here. We're going to start first. I know this. How long has this been? Has it been 2 weeks? The Pop? I always forget. It's Pop what? Funko Pop. I might not get that till 2030. Pop, I think it's so. Yeah, Funko Pop. So I mean, this is a pretty nice prize to win, and we have a lucky winner ready to go. So a little drum roll, please. The winner, the one, the only, Nelson Santos. So you have won the Vince Carter Funk Pop. Finally got it right, Michael. So congratulations to Nelson. I'm sure he can't wait to get his hands on this. And then the other thing is, I did mention yesterday, Gaming Corner at the top, surprise announcement today. And this all came together, I want to say yesterday, maybe around like 2:00. I've never had something like this come together so quickly. So after the conclusion of this show, heading home to pack and going to Newark Airport to head to LAX, Yankees Dodgers game 1 tomorrow. Let's go. Wow. So pumped. Yeah. Michael with the insight.
Tell us how it came about.
So Corey, as he has all year, hooking it up. And, we were planning to get together this weekend. And then I just randomly get a text. I'm in the middle of an appointment. So you can imagine, like, and it's one of those appointments. It's not like just like, oh, I tell you what we do. Okay, I give you an estimate. Fine. Every little thing I'm getting questions about. And I can't even pay attention because I just looked down at my phone. Do you want to go to the World Series on Friday? No, dude, I don't. I mean, unbelievable. What an opportunity. So as soon as I heard that, I'm like, all right, make it happen. Don't care what the flight is. Let's just go. So we're out for that. So flying out, I think 5:50 from Newark, get in around 9. And then gonna fly back on Saturday. And then the icing on the cake, Michael, first game at Yankee Stadium, game 3, going to that as well. So as you can imagine, for me, I mean, this is Christmas times 100. So excited. And Corey, I mean, it's unbelievable. I really appreciate, him hooking it up. I mean, this is going to be special. And I feel like we were just talking about how, like, we're like, oh, I really wanted to, like, check out Dodger Stadium. And never would I have thought it would be for the World Series. Yeah, exactly. And, provided that I think I should be able to make it out. I think I should be able to at least part. I feel like usually me, like, I'll be able to just put together the whole thing, do like a virtual show tomorrow, like call in, because we got our picks and everything. So it'll be 7 a.m. there. But listen, it just seems like it's only right. I like the whole, like, LA feel to it. So let's go. So excited for that, honestly. Like, I just didn't expect it at all. So yeah, just so grateful for that. And can't wait to share it all with you and talk about it. So that's gonna be awesome. And yeah, I'm just pumped. And it's just like, being a fan, just today, you just have like that nervousness of like the game tomorrow. And then the fact that like going to be there is just like unreal experience.
I hope they get that.
Yeah. No, Garrett getting the start. They showed some pictures of him like getting off the plane yesterday. I mean, he is dialed. Yeah. So
comments right now about this?
So we have a Josh B saying, what? Let's fucking go. Holy shit, Barnes. So I knew Josh B would be pumped. So yeah, let's fucking go. Can't wait. Somehow it always comes back together. Bernie saying, what? Let's fucking go. And then also Tommy saying DTV representing the Yanks in Chavez Ravine. Love that one. I know you'll love this one. John. So I had only told yesterday, I think John and Matt and Brandon, because I wanted to like save it for the show. And I told John and he goes, wow, really putting the LA and LA Barnaby. So some clever ones out there. And Bernie also saying morning fellas. So good to have Bernie in the building. I know he can't wait for the World Series. So let's go. Yeah, just a moment we've been waiting for so long. It just unreal that it took this long. And you don't realize it too, because you're so integrated into every season. It's just like, you never would have thought that it would have taken 15 years. So to be here, I just feel like
timing, though, so you could go.
Yeah, exactly. So
10 years ago, you wouldn't have gone.
Yeah, exactly. And yeah, it's just unreal. And I can't wait. So let's fucking go, Michael. And let's go to the world of the National Football League.
He wants Jefferson, climbs the ladder. Oh my goodness! Justin Jefferson, the catch of his life.
Burrow fires, intercepted, picked off at a pick six. Minka Fitzpatrick, an absolute ball hawk.
Niners twist up front and get to Tagovailoa. Bosa again. Mahomes escaping on the move, stops, spins, flips it forward for the touchdown.
Stop it.
Aaron Jones. Oh, what a tackle. Quincy Williams with a pile driver.
All right. So as we mentioned, we do have the start of week 8 tonight between the Rams and the Vikings. And as we were mentioning, possibly, a little more juice here, with Nakua and Kupp coming back. And it's interesting, Zach, we mentioned this on the show yesterday. I'm sure you heard, on your end, but the fact that the Rams are exploring trade options for Cup. I mean, I get that you might even be able to get like a first rounder for him. And I know, there's some areas where the Rams need to be rebuilt, but I just feel like with Matthew Stafford, I mean, why not try to turn the season around? A win tonight, you're right back in it.
Yeah, I was going to say, as long as you have Matthew Stafford, I feel like you kind of have to at least keep this unit together as best you can, because they do have a really good team with Nakua and Kyron Williams and Cup. And I also heard that the Chiefs were trying to get Cup in a trade yesterday
before
Hopkins.
Okay.
Which was very interesting. But yeah, I think you got to roll with this unit, and I think they can really turn it around. I don't think their record is really indicative of like where they can be.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess like, and I don't even know if they would do this, but like if Tampa's like, oh, we'll give you like a first, a third, and like a second next year or something, because obviously the Godwin injury is tough.
Yeah.
Evans out a couple weeks. Maybe that would tempt him, but also too, maybe they want to see, how well they play tonight.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's a great test. I mean, the Vikings are a great team, so it's definitely a good place to see where you're at. But I think they're a really good offense, so I'm interested to see if they can turn it around for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's going to be interesting too, to see how the Vikings respond, coming off that first loss of the season.
Yeah.
They've played so well all year. And it's kind of interesting because going into the year, the perception of Sam Darnold, obviously, you think of a bust with the Jets, and it's like, oh, is he really a starter? He's just playing because JJ McCarthy's out for the season. But he's played so well. And then Aaron Jones seems like he's like found the fountain of youth as well. So with him running the ball, Ty Chandler, not a bad backup as well. And then the fact that you have Justin Jefferson, who might be the best receiver in the league, Jordan Addison, and then rookie Jalen Naylor has done well. I mean, this offense looks legit. By the end of the year, I mean, do you think we're talking about a top 2 seed here, or do you think they're going to taper back and, be a wild card team?
I think it's really difficult given the division that they're in. I think the Lions to me are my pick out of the NFC right now. I feel really strongly about the way that they've been playing, but I feel like that would be the only thing to me that would push them to the wild card, is the fact that they're in a really tough division. But I think that they've played really good football in a season where there's been a lot of teams making a lot of bad mistakes, and they've played quality football. So I think they're definitely going to make the playoffs, but I don't know if they'll win their division.
Yeah. No, I think, in recent memory, this might be the best division we've ever seen, because all the teams probably will finish over 500. So, and it's like, we're talking, the Lions should win it, but then like the Packers aren't a slouch either. And the Bears, listen, I know they have a little ways to go, but they've been off to a really good start, and that defense is really good as well. So, just highly competitive there in the NFC North. And I wonder too with Darnold. You look at the numbers right now, he's averaging a little over 200 yards a game, 2 touchdowns a game, only 5 picks. The QBRs are 55, but you think if he kind of maintains that pace and, they end up making it to the playoffs, and even without winning a playoff game, but just getting there, he's 27 years old right now, be 28 next season. Do you think he's going to get like $100 million contract, or that might be a little ahead of things here?
I think it's easy for teams to get ahead of themselves in situations like this, because you just want the guy. And especially for them, they've had a lot of issues with their identity at quarterback since Kirk Cousins left. So I'm sure they want to hammer down who that guy will be, but I don't know if he's worth that much money. But I think this season will be telling to see if he gets that big deal. But I think a change of scenery has really helped him. I think he really got a bad shake, and everybody labeled him a bust, but no offense to the Jets, but that was a bad team, So a change of scenery for him has really helped him. Definitely.
And I think it's one of those things where, if he was going to go somewhere else and, get a big deal and be the starter, it's like he just needs to go somewhere where like it's a strong supporting cast and a strong coach. Like if like, let's say, this season goes awry for the Jets, like we all anticipate, it's like I don't think it would be a good idea to like go back there, for instance. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens with him. And I mean, and the Titans are on a first-year head coach, but like they're a team you think about that doesn't have a quarterback, but like you think about him going there now, it would be Sam Darnold and the Jets all over again. So that's why it's important for him, almost to the point where, like, especially because McCarthy's coming off the injury, like maybe to do a 1-year deal. I mean, I'm sure he'd love to just cash in, but I just think he should be careful moving forward because, we saw in the Panthers, it was the same thing. So he needs to be with a strong supporting cast, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating story. And I always, thought like, oh, it'd be interesting to see, what he would do with a good coach, good team, and now he's doing it. So this is going to be fascinating. But it is interesting. I look at this game, and I think it is big. That the Rams, I mean, I guess it's not official. I think as far as you've heard, is it official that Kupp's coming back, but Nakua is questionable?
Yeah, I saw yesterday on Instagram, I think it was like NFL page. They said that Kupp was coming back.
Definitely coming
but
back.
I don't know about Puka.
Okay, so 1 hour ago, Nakua remains listed as questionable for Thursday night's game against the Vikings, but the Rams are optimistic he'll be able to play. So that's a big add. And it's like, I think, it's going to be massive having those guys back. And it's funny, earlier in the week, I was, doing I'm trying to think, it must have been the Rangers wager or something. So I locked this in ahead of it, and I didn't know that either of them were coming back. So it gives me a little trepidation, but like at the same time, I still feel like even with those guys back overall, does it seem like to you that the Vikings as a whole have a better team?
Yeah, I would say right now, I think just because they've been able to like build chemistry with the current unit that they have, and the Rams were really good out of the gate. That Lions game right out of the gate was very close. So I always thought that they could compete with better teams. It was just a matter of they didn't have their whole squad. So I think like getting them back will be huge, but also like having that chemistry again is a part of it. And I think the Vikings have that just because they haven't really dealt with a lot of injuries. So
yeah, but boy, hope I'm not sweating that one out on the plane. At least it's a low number though. So who knows, if it'll go down to the wire or not. They're expecting some scoring in this one. 48.5 is the total as well. So in which, especially with those guys coming back, you could see why the number has gotten to that spot. But let's do a Thursday night football frenzy. 8:15 Prime Video. Al Michaels, Kirk Herbstreit. The start of Week 8 in the National Football League, SoFi Stadium. We mentioned the Rams getting 2 key cogs back, it looks like, tonight, and Cooper Kupp and Puka Nakua. Matthew Stafford, I believe, a career low as a Ram in passing yards last week, looking to rebound here. So I think what looked like it would be somewhat of a dull game may get exciting, may get a lot of points. So you see the over there. Thursday night, usually a little questionable going with an over. But I think that's what we're looking at here. And I look at this game, and I wouldn't be surprised. First couple possessions, we have a few scores, and maybe we go to the half, with the Rams possibly up 17-14, and then on to the second half. Maybe we get an ill-timed Stafford interception. And I think this is going to come down to a field goal. I think both quarterbacks, over 250, couple touchdowns. But I think the Vikings win this one late on a field goal. I'm going to say as time expires, 47 yards out, the Vikings victorious here. And we are going to say by the mark of 31-24. So the Vikings and the over. And just like that, that is your Thursday night football frenzy. So hopefully we are treated to a good one tonight. And this really feels like, it is the Rams season here. You want to just get right back to it. And I'm blanking here because I feel like we haven't talked football with you that much, Zach, recently. Your team again?
I am a miserable Saints fan right now.
Oh, right. Okay. So I was surprised about the Kamara contract extension.
Yeah, I didn't think we could pay him, to be honest, but I think in retrospect now, 2 years, it's 24.5 mil. I think that's doable for us, and I don't think it's like we didn't take on a massive contract that we
Mhm.
can't pay. But I'm happy to have him back, but I'm biased because he's my favorite player. So
Yeah. I mean, he definitely. I think the whole thing is obviously, he goes as the quarterback play goes, and Spencer Rattler coming into this year was not prepared to play.
no.
Is there a timeline on Carr? Because he's on IR.
He's week to week right now.
Okay.
But I think within the next 2 weeks he should be back.
He should
That's
be back.
the goal, but I don't know. It's tough. We're so depleted with injuries right now. It's tough.
Yeah. I mean, and it's just one of those things, though. I feel like very rarely, you have someone come in and play better, and usually, even if they do, it's only for like a short spurt. You think about like Dobbs last year. That was like a big thing, and obviously we saw the real version of him.
Yeah.
As time went on, and even like Mike White to an extent. The backup quarterback doing well seems to only work if it's someone who has an established track record of being a starter.
Yeah.
So it's interesting though. Rattler, like at one point they were thinking he would be the number 1 pick in the draft. Stock really fell.
Yeah.
Had to transfer a couple times. So kind of interesting that he gets this opportunity. And then Olave is out this week as well, or he's technically questionable, coming back from a concussion, right?
I think I saw that he returned to practice yesterday. So
Okay.
I don't know what he's doing this week. I don't know if he's playing, but he was pretty badly concussed, so he's been out as well. And Shaheed is done. He has season-ending surgery.
Oh, it's for the whole year.
Yeah, he's done too.
Damn.
Yeah, so we're really banged up, and I'm not even talking about defense too. Defense is a mess too.
Yeah.
With the injuries. So
yeah. And I've been saying this to Tony the last couple of weeks. I mean, we'll see what happens, especially when Carr comes back. But hard to think that by the time this season is over, that Dennis Allen is still the coach, especially, if we get to like 3-10, 4-11. I mean, do you think that's the direction we're heading, or?
Yeah, I mean, because like in the past, like at least we've had, the benefit of everyone being healthy on our side. The defense can hold it down, but it just feels like nobody's playing with any sense of pride right now because it's such a disaster. So I think that's where it's going. And I think it's tough because our ownership is not really active in this stuff. They don't drop the hammer. Like that's never how the Saints have been. We don't just fire a coach mid-season. So, I mean, luckily we've had Sean Payton, so that hasn't had to be the case, but we don't operate like that. So I think we're just going to let it ride for the rest of the year. And then there's going to have to be a lot of changes.
Yeah. And I mean, I think, listen, like obviously, you want to have a good defense, and he was a part of some good defense as the defensive coordinator under Payton.
Yeah.
But we've seen the way that this offense has fallen off. It's like, I think you got to go back to an offensive coach.
Yeah.
And kind of like what you were saying about the way that they're playing and stuff. And I'm sure you probably heard Kamara say, like, people are leaving in the second quarter of the games.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, that's not an offense on us, but it's just a point. And I think that kills team morale. So it will be interesting to see, how that scenario plays out. I've been saying too, just kind of curious your perspective here. The Jets, had a, seem to be playing well to start last game. They fall apart, and they're on this 3-game losing streak now, or is maybe even 4-game losing streak, whatever it is. But I kind of think even with Adams and getting guys back, I just think it's over. I think that they've just buried themselves too much.
Yeah.
They've given away these games that these wins you're going to need down the stretch, and I don't see how it comes together.
Yeah, I just don't think anybody's on the same page. And like, no offense to Rodgers, but it just doesn't feel like he's kind of galvanized the team. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't feel that way. It just kind of feels like everyone's out there trying to figure it out. Nobody's on the same page. There's no chemistry. And I think like getting Devontae Adams is great, but it's kind of like the quick fix to the problem.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what that's going to fix because they're still making the mistakes that bad football teams make, especially in key situations. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't know if this was in reference to, what week it was, but Bernie's saying week 9, but it is week 8. But unless he was talking about a certain matchup or someone coming back or something.
Yeah.
But as we get to this point in the season, you do kind of get confused with what week it just seems like it always flies by this point of the season. And next thing we know it's the playoffs. Are you big with the fantasy football?
Yes, I am in 3 leagues right now, so I have my hands full with everything. The tough thing is injuries have been really bad. So I had a team that was undefeated. I was 5-0, but everybody's dropping like flies right now. So it's tough, but I'll definitely I have confidence that I'll secure a playoff spot. So
yeah. No, I mean that sounds pretty good. I have had, I'm always like, and I do a crazy amount of leagues, 5 leagues. I know it sounds nuts. Obviously, you somewhat get it with 3.
Yeah.
But this is the worst start I've ever had. My best record out of all the teams are 2, 3, and 4 teams, a 2 and 5 team, and then 2 teams that started 0-6 and picked up their first win last week. And you look at the roster, not bad. One of those kind of like bad luck scenarios, not the last team with points. So that's why it can be so frustrating. And I really wasn't anticipating. I've had a good run last couple of years. Fantasy baseball, all competitive, but football is tough. I mean, you really can get bad luck there.
Yeah, definitely. Because even in my league, I have a friend who's one of the highest scoring teams, but that doesn't matter because of how things fall. So you could still be, 3 and 4.
But it almost makes me think like, should we reconsider the format and just have it be just weekly points?
Yeah.
Or just season points, meaning,
like no matchups and just scoring.
Kind of like rotisserie for football.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that.
Because at the end of the day, I mean, that's what it's about, scoring points. You score points, you win. And then if you did it that way, and then the playoffs were head-to-head, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
But I know it's been like that for a while. Bernie's saying Carr is coming back from his injury week 9. So good job there for Bernie. So next week. So, game against the Chargers. But are you of the mindset until Carr gets back, like you're not expecting any W's, or do you think Chargers, you never know type of thing? Or
I think it'll be competitive. I think that we're going to do our best with what we have, but at the same time, I don't really think it matters who you put back there because the offensive line is a mess.
Yeah.
And that's been a theme for us for the last couple of years. And we had our starting center go down in the second week of the season, which really sucked because he's really the leader of the offensive line. So we don't really have him. I mean, Rattler was getting mauled back there, and Carr got mauled back there last year, and it's the same thing this year. If you can't block it, the plays can't even be executed. That was like my biggest thing with them. So
yeah. And obviously, I mean, you can't help injury, but I always just like marvel at teams like, especially like going into the year, that don't prioritize the offensive line. I feel like it's like offensive line and quarterback, no matter what anybody wants to say, there's no way you could just kind of like get by and just wing it. You know what I mean? You can have a questionable defense, but if your offense is churning, scoring, but you have a shot. But without that, I mean, you have no chance. So just interesting that teams have set themselves up for that sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, it's a scoring league. So you can't have that.
So it'll be an interesting week 8, that's for sure. We'll do our full frenzy tomorrow. Let's go now, though, to the world of the National Hockey League.
Here he comes. McDavid shoots. Top shelf. He scores. Captain with the overtime winner. That's the nail pick. That's a world-class hit right here. Tomsky stepping. Rink Washington made the full split save.
Are you kidding me?
Turn, side of the net, between the legs, and they score! Filthy! David Pastrnak, the silver trophy to the Golden Knights!
Right, all right. So a light night in the NHL last night. One game The Capitals continuing their hot play here now, 5-1 on the season, a 6-3 victory over the Flyers. So they've had a tough go to start. And I think, for the Capitals that have felt like they're kind of just hanging on, the end of their careers of Tom Wilson and Ovechkin, imminent, it feels like. I think they're happy with the start. Obviously, the whole key is maintaining it, but I do feel like they were a playoff team last year. And I think the goalie, Ranger defenseman Ryan Lindgren, his brother, Charlie Lindgren, has done a good job. He didn't start this one last night though. With the back-to-back games, they went with Thompson, the former Knight. But nevertheless, I mean, it's a impressive start for the Capitals. So be interesting to see, if they can maintain this. And I believe, because I just saw a promo on my screen, that they play the Rangers next week, I believe on Tuesday. So that'll be a good test for them going up to clearly, once again, one of the best teams in the NHL. And I forgot with you, Zach, hockey, any interest there, or what's?
Yeah, definitely. I would say I'm a Rangers fan.
Okay.
I was in Vegas last week for the fall break. I went to a Golden Knights game.
Wow, that must have been dope.
It was awesome. It was different. And I went to a Raiders game as well, which was pretty sweet.
Oh, that stadium must be amazing.
It's so different than New York sports, like the whole fan culture and everything. I just thought it was really cool. The Knights do a really good job, especially. It was really fun.
Now how is it? Because the Raiders typically, those games are at least half away fans or more, right? Is that? Because then who was it against?
The Steelers.
So it was
the Steelers home game. They took over the city basically. It was crazy. I've never seen anything like it.
Yeah, no, I remember seeing those towels going in the crowd. That's kind of nuts. And Knights though, is that more of a night crowd, or is that still the same thing with like the road team coming in, in terms of the fan base?
I think they have an actual fan base.
Because they were like the first team, right, in Vegas.
Yeah, that was the first sports team in Nevada, so it was big for them. And also, they've won recently, so that always helps, to drive people in and get people interested. But yeah, they have a real fan base for sure.
And what would you say, hockey wise, you noticed, going to that arena, what was different than what it would be here, in New York and in the surrounding area?
I just think everybody's more laid back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're still riled for the team and everything, but it's much more laid back. I've been to Rangers games at the Garden and stuff, and it's crazy. People are insane. They're passionate, but it's a very different vibe.
Well, and kind of like what you were saying, a little different when you're not, in the midst of a 30-year plus drought. When you've won a team in your first couple years of inception. I mean, just a completely different story. How were the ticket prices for that?
They were pretty good. My uncle got us really good seats, so it was awesome. We were in the lower bowl, so I was right on top of the action, so it was really sweet. So yeah, and they weren't too bad. I think they were a couple $100.
Oh, but to be right down there, because really, I mean, Rangers, especially a good game on a weekend or something. I mean, just to get in is over $200. So you sit down there, that's a pretty good deal. And I think too, attendance wise, they're usually pretty full there, right? Was it packed?
Yeah, it was pretty much sold out.
Yeah,
it was packed.
Yeah, no, I definitely want to check that one out. And it's kind of interesting. You're mentioning the Raiders, and the Chargers. I think are in the same boat. It's I get it because the owner's happy with just revenue. You're getting all the tickets, but it must be a weird feeling to play in a home arena or a home field where it's more I don't know, it doesn't sit well with me. And I feel like if I was a fan of those teams, I would have a real problem with it.
Yeah, I think it's tough because you kind of took the identity of the Raiders away because the Oakland fans were awesome. I thought they were. They were. I loved how crazy they were. And I mean, they still show up when they can, but Las Vegas is a tourist attraction. So it's not. And they haven't played well since they've been there, really, so it hasn't really helped their case. But it's the same thing with the Chargers too. I just think it took away their identity because you put them in places that they don't belong, you know?
Yeah, and it's a shame. I think there's like a redevelopment with their old stadium, Qualcomm.
Yeah.
I think they just demoed it last year, whatever it was. But I always thought like because of, how there's just no buzz with them in Los Angeles that like maybe they would figure out a way to get them back to San Diego. But I don't think there's like the land for it, but it's just like you see a scenario like that because I think the Rams, they have like at least like a decent footprint just because they were there before, but the Rams still struggled to really get like capture the Los Angeles, fans and everything. So you could only imagine how, I hear all the time, like on radio in Los Angeles, like the Chargers aren't even brought up. Like they're just a complete afterthought.
Yeah. And I think like it's a sign when it becomes an away game almost every game for you.
Right.
Like, I think the Cowboys are a really good example of like if a team has a true fan base, because when they roll through, it usually gets taken over by them, or like the Steelers. So you can really see it, because I don't think you see it when it's just empty seats. But when that occurs, you're like, oh God, like this is bad.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'll never have to know the feeling of that with the teams that I root for.
Yeah.
So at least there's that. And now have you been to MSG recently, like last couple years or?
I have not been in a while. I'm thinking of going to either a Knicks or Rangers game this year. So I'm going to try and get that hammered down with my friends, because I definitely want to get back there.
Yeah. No, it's awesome. And yeah, I've been to a couple Knicks games, couple Rangers games. Was at a great Ranger game last year against the Flyers. I think they were down like 3 goals in the third period and came back, like something ridiculous like that. So the atmosphere is nuts. And it's a shame that the product doesn't match up. So, the attendance isn't always strong.
Yeah.
But I was really impressed. I don't know if you've been there going to a UBS arena for the Islanders.
I have not been, but the Islanders have a huge fan base. So I think that moving back there was smart. I don't think they belonged in Brooklyn.
No. That wasn't a good match. And it's just amazing, the affordability. But again, it's just, you really have to drive there. I mean, you could take like the train, but it's just so complicated. It's going to take 2 hours, especially I'm in Stanford. It's 40 minutes to drive to the arena, or I could spend 2 hours on a train. But the ticket prices are so cheap. Like last year, just in the last second, me and my buddy are sitting at Bobby V's in Stanford. We're like, oh, you want to go to the home opener? And like our seats were like $60 to go to the home opener versus the Ranger home opener, $200 or whatever.
Yeah.
And then another game I went, I'm sitting in the 100 section for $50, and I'm like 10 rows from the glass. It's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
So the design of that stadium was well, and they did a good job. I just hope that they can turn that team around, because it just seems like, they had those couple conference finals, appearances, and then they just have not been able to recapture any type of sustained success. And I thought Patrick Waugh coming in would maybe set the tone, but they just haven't been able to do it.
Yeah. I think in my lifetime, they've had high points, but overall they really haven't had that breakthrough season where they've been like a serious threat in the playoffs. So
yeah, absolutely. So that'll be interesting. And we almost had like a Ranger Islander playoff series last year. That would have been a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So maybe they turn it around and we get that this year. But like their last game, for instance, typical Islander 1-0 loss as a -170 favorite at home. I mean, you can't have stuff like that. So a big slate tonight after that abbreviated slate last night. And obviously what we're focused on here, before we do our picks, is that Ranger game, Rangers Panthers. So this is a rematch of the Eastern Conference Finals. So I think this one, definitely means a lot for the Rangers. And it's kind of like one of those things, almost what you're talking about, but we're talking about the players, not the fans, but the Panthers, after going to the Stanley Cup final 2 years ago, win it last year. So kind of pressure off. Their coach, Paul Maurice, I think, just got a contract extension. And then that day and later on that night, they lost like 5-1 to the Wild, which is surprising. So 4-3-1, but I do expect them once again to be, one of the best teams, if not the best, especially in the Eastern Conference. But I think there is something to, the fashion that the Rangers lost, having a lead in that series against the Panthers last year and just unable to really do anything and stop all of their playmakers. I think they are going to come back for a vengeance this season, and I think it does start with tonight. So I would be shocked if they don't really put their best foot forward here and take this game and prove to themselves and prove to the fans that they can beat this team. And it would be epic if we were to get that matchup once again in the Eastern Conference Finals. And it is interesting with the Rangers, and I said this all off season, and it's funny that they kind of proved me wrong last year doing it again. Last year I was like, geez, you really didn't make any changes. And Tony was telling me, Laviolette is gonna make a big impact. Obviously he does. But after last off season, I'm just thinking to myself, we've had kind of the same nucleus. Guys are getting older. I've just felt like, we need this, like a McDavid or that type of player. But obviously they're playing really well right now. But it is tough because that they won the President's Trophy last year, but then, the same type of issues, especially later on in the playoffs, popped up with certain guys going missing in terms of their offensive production for certain games. When you look at them, do you think that there's enough there to get to a Stanley Cup final? Because you have a lot of really good players, but you don't have a guy that you would say, I would imagine anyway, that's even in the top 10 in the league. What do you think about them running it back this year?
I think it's definitely possible. I think that, like you said, guys are getting older, so the window keeps shrinking. But
yeah,
I think they definitely have a shot, and they may not have a McDavid or a guy like that that's a star player, but I think they're a really good unit. And I think that the Panthers were a really good unit last year. They were a great team. They didn't have one guy carry them. So I think that they definitely have a chance. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think the difference should be this year, because you go back to last year, I was screaming, shouting, let's get Jake Gensel. And they didn't get him, and they ended up playing him in the playoffs. Luckily, they beat the Hurricanes. But I feel like that's the difference this year. Don't get Alex Wenberg at the trade deadline. Get somebody who's actually going to make an impact. Yeah. And then I think that could take them to the next level. And obviously, too, another great sign, and we've seen this in, baseball with Judge and Soto, Igor betting on himself, turning down the contract extension. So, of course, to start the season, he's really dialed in. So if he's going to play like this and maybe have a chance to win the Vezina, I think the Rangers will put themselves in a good position. And I hope, too, one guy I was really disappointed in last year was Mika. He scored last game. So hope this is a rebound season, because the season before, he was our best player. So I hope that's the case. And Tommy's saying, I think Torts is on the hot seat? It's still early. I think it's just one of those things, though, if this season really gets out of hand, and I know they almost made the playoffs in what was expected to be a rebuilding year last season, I just think it all can't fall apart. They can't be 10-30. Then, a change might happen. But if they can hang in there, win a few games coming up, then, I think he'll be able to survive the season. We will see, though. But it is time for a Thursday night hockey frenzy. All right. So starting in Boston, the TD Garden, we have the Bruins hosting the Stars. And this is an interesting one. The Bruins, another team, obviously very early on here, 500 to start. We know about all their key cogs. They commit to Swayman, trade Olmark in the offseason. They still have Pasternak, of course. And Dallas had a strong season themselves. Group Hintz leading the way so far this year in points. So I think this would be a really good game. And I think it was last year where we saw the Bruins kind of struggle in overtime. Maybe a little reversal of fortune here, but I feel like they're very good at home. So I'll give them the W here. I'm going to say 4-3 overtime. Bruins in the over. Pasternak, the game winner. Next up in Toronto, you have the Leafs hosting the Blues. Teams both with the same record here, 4-3. So kind of tough to decipher, and it's like the Maple Leafs, it feels like you count on them. That's when they disappoint you. But I'll go with them again here. I just think there is a lot of firepower, and it's interesting. All the guys they have, whether it's Matthews, Tavares, Nylander leading the way in points here so far. 5 goals through the first 7 games. But I'd say they win this one 6-3. So that would be the Leafs and the over. We have Detroit hosting the Devils. I've been big on the Devil fades to start the season. But I do think Detroit still needs a lot more here. And the Devils have improved their team. I think it was big getting Markstrom and Nat after all the uncertainty last year. You have Vanacek. Schmidt didn't play well after a great postseason the year before. You bring in Kaapo Kakkonen. That didn't work out either. So I think Markstrom offers them some stability. So I think they win this one. A tight one in Detroit, but 3-2. Devils in the under. Next game up. Wild. No regulation losses so far this year. 4-0-2 at the Lightning. Love the way the Wild are playing here. Lightning have had some really good games in their wins, some questionable games in their losses. But it's always tough. It's a muscle memory thing. The Lightning, that fan base at Amalie Arena, just so into it every game. So just because of that, I think they squeak this one out. I think this is another overtime game. I'm going to say the under as well. 3-2, Kucherov, the game winner in overtime. Next game up, Madison Square Garden. The Rangers, 5-0-1 here, going up against the Panthers, who are 4-3-1. We talked about this before. I think the Rangers want to make a statement in this matchup between the two teams that met in the Eastern Conference Finals last year. I think this will be close. This will be yet another overtime game. And I think, I believe it was Kenny Albert last year on the call. Panarin scores. Might have been double overtime. I think he will hit the game winner here in overtime. So let's say Rangers 4-3, Rangers in the over in that one. The Flames don't have a regulation loss either. They're hosting the Hurricanes here. This is an interesting matchup. I do think the Flames are due for a loss here. We had Aho with a game winner in overtime last time. I think no overtime this time. But the Hurricanes will be victorious here by the score of 4-2. So the Hurricanes and the under. You have the Avalanche at the Utah Hockey Club. Interesting matchup here. Utah, great star, has lost a couple recently. Avalanche lost their first 4, have won their last 3. Going away from Gorgie and Ned, it seems like, possibly. So I think this will be a tight game. But the Avalanche, all those vets on that team, Mikko Rantanen, Cale Makar, I think they're going to have a strong performance here. And I think you're going to see Rantanen with 2 goals and an assist. Let's say 5-3 Avalanche in the over. Jets are undefeated at 6-0. They're at the Kraken in Seattle. I think the Jets will win this one. It might be close early. I think they pull away 4-2 Jets in the under. Last game on the schedule, Crypto.com. The Kings hosting the Sharks here. I keep picking the Sharks. They keep losing, but eventually they're going to win. No team has gone the whole hockey season without a win. So let's go to Foley again, the number 1 pick. 4 goals in the early going. 2 goals here. 2-1 Sharks. And just like that, that is your Thursday night hockey frenzy. So a lot of good games here. Excited to see the Rangers back in action very early on in hockey season, but we know we're in for another epic season in the National Hockey League. But let's go now to the world of the National Basketball Association.
The Bulls go! LeBron James at the buzzer! He banks in the three! And the Lakers win the game!
All right. So a little more action in the NBA than we have the last couple of years. I think things are interesting, just the moves this offseason. The Knicks, I know it was a terrible start to their season. And I remind me again, I'm not going to forget again, Zach, your NBA team?
I'm a Knicks fan.
Knicks fan. Okay. So glad you said that. So I took it as, listen, that performance on opening night obviously was atrocious, but I still think they're going to be a really good team. And I think they have a really good shot to be better than they were last year with the offensive moves. And I know you lost DiVincenzo, who was a big part of the team last year. Is that how you saw it? That it's just going to take, maybe a week or two to really get acclimated playing together, and then we will see the version of the Knicks that we're anticipating?
Yeah, and I think that it's tough because the Celtics, I mean, I don't know many defenses that could have put up a fight. I mean,
was that the most ever in a game?
They almost broke the record. They missed like 14 straight at the end with their bench guys. They could have broken it, but
okay, gotcha.
Yeah, I just think that's a really tough shake, and I'm not worried about it. I think if we are 2 months into the season or whatever it may be, and they're really struggling, that's a different story. But it's game one, and I think that the Celtics came out and they were pissed off, especially Jaylen Brown and Tatum over the Olympics and getting snubbed and all that. So I think they just came out and lit it up. But I'm not worried. I want to see how this plays out first before I make any big judgments about the teams.
And obviously, I mean, there's no point in debating it now. The move happened. Initially, though, I mean, what did you think of the Towns trade? I mean, were you in favor of it?
Yeah, I think it's a good move in some aspects, but I think losing DiVincenzo kind of sucks because he was our shooter.
Right.
And he was the guy that we had beyond the arc to make a difference there. And he was also just a great team player. Like,
right.
He fit the scheme of the team really well. So it's tough, but you got to give to get. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think too, Karl Anthony Towns, he's been in Minnesota his entire career. I think coming to New York, I really could see him really elevating his game to the next level. And it's interesting too, obviously, back in his Minnesota days, him and Tibbs, had a little beef. Obviously, that's squashed now.
Yeah.
And I think the biggest thing is that, you already, before you made these additions with Bridges and Towns, you already had, your captain in Jalen Brunson. So I feel like there's a good sense of camaraderie there. It's just all about, getting used to playing with one another. So I think they're going to be fun to watch this year, though.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely want to lock in and watch as many games as I can because it's a new unit, it's a new team. So I'm excited for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So looking around the league last night, just kind of going over the scores here. You had the Pacers over the Pistons, 115-109. Leading scorer in that one, Cunningham, 28-8. So has missed some time through the first couple of years of his career with injury, but is expected to be a star. So it'll be interesting to see for the forever rebuilding Detroit Pistons, if he takes the next step, maybe they take some type of next step. But it just seems like every time you look up, they're 10-50.
Yeah.
The Pacers, they do have Halliburton, Siakam, so they're kind of interesting to see what they do. A playoff team last year, I would expect them to be in the mix again this year. The Nets kind of going through a rebuild, lost 120-116 to the Hawks. Obviously, they have all those picks from the Knicks to look forward to in the future. And, for right now, you got guys like Cam Thomas and Cam Johnson. So going to be interesting to see how they play a competitive game. But, Thomas had 36, but Trae Young also having 30 points and 12 assists. We saw the Magic 116-97 over the Heat. That's an interesting team. Obviously, we know how good Banchero is. So are they a team that kind of surprises you? Almost like how Oklahoma City and Minnesota last year became, perennial powerhouses. Do they take that type of step? Because I know Banchero is special. So that'll be interesting to see. It's a shame that they were missing their top two players because it would have been a great matchup between the Bucks and the Sixers, but you take away Joel Embiid and Paul George, what are you really left with other than Tyrese Maxey? So no surprise that the Bucks handled them by 15 points, and they're an interesting team. It's like I just kind of wonder because I know this league is so player dominated. They have so much power, but it just seems like Doc Rivers, going on 16 years, just has not been in situations where I feel like the feeling is good.
Yeah.
When you look at them, do you think that is like the number one thing that hamstrings them is that, you get to a playoff series, you get to a tight game. It just seems like it hasn't gone his way for a long time.
Yeah. I think their biggest problem is going to be their ability to stay healthy, and they've been highlighting that already because Paul George, I know he got hurt during the preseason, but he'll be back. But him and Embiid are going to do the load management thing, which is fine. But like, you're going to put it all on Maxey to be out there every other night and win games. I don't know. Maxey's a great player, but and then just in terms of Rivers, I agree with you. I feel like he's only gotten over the hump once, and really since then it's been he's competing. He can get a team to the playoffs, and he always seems to fall into another job as a head coach, but he's not.
Yeah, I
Making
mean,
the difference.
No,
you
in
know
all
what I
the
mean?
game sevens he's lost in a row, and I feel
Yeah.
like the Bucks have such a good team, and I just don't know if he's the right guy to really get it going. With Giannis and Lillard, because I think that's an interesting pairing. Both guys like the ball in their hands, so it's going to be interesting to see how that works out. Because if it wasn't for him, I feel like I would say, the Bucks have as good a chance as anybody to get back to the finals.
Oh yeah, I was confusing my coaches. My bad.
But that was his last coaching job.
Nick Nurse is the
the
coach.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
sorry.
yeah.
Yeah. Still though, it's still the same sentiment to me. Like I still think he's never been to that next level besides when he was with the Celtics. So,
So, possibly, one of the more overrated coaches of all time. We saw the Cavs trounce the Raptors in Toronto by 30. So they're an interesting team. You got Mitchell, you got Mobley, you have Darius Garland, Mobley leading the way, 25-9-3. The Hornets, a healthy LaMelo Ball, and you have yourselves a victory here, 34-8-11. And it was interesting. I was worried. I was kind of doing the picks while I forgot what was on. Maybe I was watching the Rangers, whatever it was. But I had my NBA fantasy draft the other night, and LaMelo felt like 10 picks. I'm like, what? Like, I guess it's just like people are nervous when him getting injured. I know he has gotten injured, but you look at that stat line last night. If he could just somehow find a way to play 65, 70 games, I mean, they probably will be a playoff team, and he's that good.
Yeah, I think so. I think it just comes down to his ability to stay healthy, but everyone knows how talented he is.
Yeah. And it's like, I mean, if AD could play, I think 77 games last year.
Yeah.
In Zion could play 70 games.
Yeah.
So could LaMelo. Alex Sagoon from Houston, kind of, one of the more under-heralded guys. He got that big rookie contract extension, 25-18-4. So they have Jalen Green as well, got a contract extension. So they're an interesting team, falling short there. And we had the Pelicans 123-111 over the Bulls. Bulls, a team almost like the Pistons. I mean, better than that, but just seems like, not going in the right direction there. Pelicans, you think about Zion and Ingram. Be interesting to see where they fall in the Western Conference this year. Ja Morant leading the Grizzlies 126-124. So an exciting game there in Utah. Lauri Markkanen leading the way for them 35-9. You almost forget about Ja all the time. He's missed the last couple of years, but he is, as long as, everything off the court is straightened out. I mean, he is one of the better players in the league. So that's interesting with him, with Jackson. I mean, they could be a team that bounces back in a big way this year, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I think as long as you have Ja and he's able to keep it together, be on the court, they'll always have a chance to compete because he's a dog. So
so that'll be interesting. We had a fascinating game between the Suns and the Clippers last night, opening up the Clippers, brand new arena. But to Steve Ballmer's dismay, they fall in overtime 116-113. You had James Harden leading the way, obviously Kawhi out indefinitely, 29, 12, and 8. And Beal leading the way for the Suns with 24 points. It's interesting with the Suns, obviously very disappointing end of the year last year. And it's just like, once again, KD's in the middle of this, big collection of talent, but are the results going to get there? I mean, when you look at them, do you think that they're going to figure it out this year and actually be, the threat that we thought they would be last year?
I don't know. I think I would like that to happen because I like KD and I enjoy watching him play, and I like them as a team. I think they have a good unit, but I don't know. I just think there's better teams, you know what I mean, that play better in big situations. So I don't know. I think only time will tell with that. But yeah.
Yeah, and I think it just, again, it's one of those things, and obviously you think back to the Brooklyn Net disaster from
Yeah.
a few years ago, where it seems like, oh, just get this guy to get that
Yeah.
guy, and it all goes. But it's just like there's more to that, and unless you're in that locker room on the practice court every day, you don't know what it's like. So I think that's the problem there. There's a lot of egos, and those egos need to be put aside if that team is going to go anywhere. So that's kind of interesting. The Warriors hit 23 pointers in their win over the Blazers last night, 139-104. Obviously, the Blazers themselves in the middle of a rebuild, after that Damian Lillard trade last year. So I don't know how much, you could really put into this type of win for Golden State. But I don't know. I just think that, obviously without Clay now, and I know, he's diminished, especially from the player that he once was, but I just don't know if they have enough there. And I think like Draymond, I feel like is not even like a starting player anymore compared to how good he used to be. So it's like you just have Steph Curry, and like we all forget, because Steph Curry, okay, like he's been in the league in a while. But you don't realize that, like, what, he's 36, 37 years old. Like, it's kind of nuts how quick that happened. But I don't know about you, but I just feel like unless another big piece comes in there, I just don't see how they can get back into title contention.
Yeah, and I think their calling card, obviously, Steph is unbelievable, but they've always had good teams. There's never been one guy that, carries them. They've had a great starting five always. So if you are starting to take pieces out, and I don't think Clay definitely diminished. He wasn't the same guy, but I think a lot of people still wish he was there just to have him. But yeah, I don't know. I don't see them like making some crazy run,
because last year they missed the playoffs entirely, right? I think they were in the play-in.
They probably made the play-in
and then didn't make it through that. Yeah,
you gotta be terrible to not make the playoffs these days.
And it's funny, my NBA interest peaked years ago. But that's one thing, almost like, the Ghost Runner in MLB and when we used to do 7-inning doubleheaders. Why the play-in? Like, it's just like, I know why the play-in, because it's like more dollars and stuff. But between that and the in-season tournament, what's going on? Like, I just feel like it's just not the right thing. And it's just like, I guess, they have a product that people are going to absorb, so it doesn't matter. But it's just, I don't know. Just to me, I just feel like it's just not a good look.
Yeah, I think it's all about money.
Yeah,
because that's really these big media rights deals, and if a network can get a play-in game, it's not as big, but it's a playoff game, and people are going to watch it because they have to. So the in-season tournament, I just think, is like a throwaway thing.
Before I just said that, I completely forgot that the Lakers won that last year.
Yeah, and they were celebrating in the locker room, like popping champagne. Like, it's so stupid. Like,
yeah. Oh man, it is really tough. Like, I let me tell you, like, there was a time where, especially as like a whole, I would say the NBA like was my favorite sport to watch. The playoffs, the finals, and it's just like so far removed from that. It really is a shame. I mean, at least it's like, okay, playoffs, and even, or just games where if the players are actually playing and not resting, like, that's fun. But I just feel like there's been so many things over the years that have been a turnoff, but it seems like that it only turns off the older demographic, that the younger demographic is not bothered by it.
Yeah, and that's funny you say that, because I was watching some of the games last night with my dad, and he was basically saying what you're saying. Like, it's not a product that he can really get behind anymore, because they took all the physicality out of the game. Everyone rests. The playoffs don't really mean as much because of the play-in. I don't know. I think it just depends on how old you are and how you view it, but I think it definitely, there's a lot of things that used to mean more in the league that just don't mean as much.
And I just don't get, like, it's different than football with like the physicality. Like, why did they think that they needed to get rid of the physicality? Like, it's not like there was like a record amount of injuries. Like, where did that come from?
I don't know.
Players complaining?
I think it's just how the league has evolved and how things have changed, but I don't know if there was any concrete reason for it other than people score at a high clip now, and I guess that's more entertaining to people because the games. But to me, I think like I watch college basketball, and I feel like that's more entertaining because they're actually playing defense.
Yeah, no, I
So,
agree.
I don't
agree.
know. That's my take on it. So.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. Just looking at the games tonight, you got Celtics at the Wizards, Boston 13.5-point road favorite there. These are the type of things like second game of the season, the last game, the Celtics, they get their rings. It's like they're in Washington, like they're probably not even gonna be motivated, and they're still gonna win by 30. It's like, why are we even playing this game?
Yeah.
And one team though that I am interested, so that's the first game, I would expect Celtics easily to cover that 13.5. The Spurs at the Mavs. So you got the Mavs, coming off that surprise run to the NBA Finals last year. And then the Spurs have been an absolute dumpster fire. But Wemby, year 2, they get Chris Paul and Stephon Castle from UConn. It's interesting. Like maybe they are actually competitive this year. I mean, I know they haven't played a game yet, so who knows? But is that something you kind of have in the back of your mind that they might return to like playoff contention?
Yeah, I think it's possible. They have Chris Paul as well.
Yeah, Chris Paul.
Yeah, I could see it. I think like we just said, I mean, there's 10 spots now. I mean, you can find your way into the playoffs,
right?
As long as you're not god awful.
Yeah.
So I think it's definitely possible, and I think it's going to be really cool to see that group of guys play together and see how it goes. So yeah. So we'll see what happens there. I'm going to say, not all the favorites can cover. So give me the Spurs with the +8.5 here. You never know when Wemby will have like a 40, 20, and 10 games, something like that. And it'll be interesting to see how they integrate Stephon Castle as well. And then you have the Thunder Nuggets. That's a good game. Second half of that doubleheader on TNT. As we begin too, the last I guess they had the opening games the other night, but just that this is the last season with the NBA on TNT, which is kind of nuts. But you have the Nuggets and the Thunder. Interesting. Nuggets obviously winning that title 2 years ago, falling short last year. Thunder, were right up there in the top seeds in the West last season. Shai is unbelievable. I really think, you want to talk about a rebuilding job. What a job that the Thunder have done. And I would not be surprised if they find themselves in the NBA Finals. I think they're absolutely loaded. Chet Holmgren is unbelievable. The way he bounced back after missing his rookie year with injury was so impressive. You bring in Hartenstein on that big contract. I can't believe that he's getting paid $30 million. Is that like one of the most craziest things you've ever seen? Like, I know he's a good player, but is he $30 million? I don't know. I mean, I think he obviously was a huge impact player for the Knicks, but he got big money. I think everything's inflated now with contracts and everything. And I guess they kind of struck when the iron was hot with him because he was such a good player. But I don't know. I think we'll just have to see. But I think in terms of the Thunder, I think what's awesome about them is it's nice to have a mix of veterans and young guys. But they're all so young and they're all coming up on the same track. And I think eventually they're going to get to that point where they have that chemistry together and they're going to be one of the best teams in the league.
Yeah. So that's going to be interesting. I say they get the job done in Denver. Last game of the night, you got the Kings hosting the Wolves. The Wolves losing that opener. Obviously, we all know about Anthony Edwards, and now they have Julius Randle and DiVincenzo. And this is coming off a year where I think they were the top seed in the Western Conference. And it's interesting. I think as Anthony Edwards goes, they go, and they're another team that could easily find themselves in the Western Conference. And Anthony Edwards, who knows? We could be on the precipice here of a MVP season. He's that good. You got Gobert on defense, and I think Julius Randle, if he's healthy, will be an impact player. And I think DiVincenzo, as watching the Knicks a lot last year, that off the bench is so big.
Yeah.
So wouldn't be surprised if he won 6th man of the year. Mike Conley still going along. It's crazy. It feels like he's been in the league for 20 years.
I know.
So I think they're a good team. I think they'll handle the Kings, tonight, but we'll see. So definitely some, interesting storylines, around the NBA. And as the season goes on, we'll definitely stay in tune, with those. And the last thing here, I really just wanted to mention quickly, I know it isn't a rating bonanza, but we do have the Zozo Championship going on in Japan. With the time difference, round one has already been completed. Taylor Moore, the leader in the clubhouse here, 7 under, one shot clear of Greiserman, Echevarria, and Eric Cole. CT Pan at 5 under, tied with you for 5th. Justin Thomas in the mix for this. So kind of interesting seeing JT, in the mix here and playing a fall event, after coming off a really big rebound year last year. So he finds himself 3 shot back of the lead. And then you have Johnny Vegas, finally getting that win. I think it was like 8 years since his last one last season. He's 4 under, 3 shots back as well. So, a better field here than we're used to. You got Ricky Fowler, Matt Kuchar as well. So a tournament, we'll keep an eye out for. As we inch closer and closer day by day to those first tee shots at Augusta National. But for the fall season, next week, is it next week or the following week? So I guess we have a week off, and then we get the Worldwide Technology Championship at Los Cabos. We go to Bermuda the next week for the Butterfield Championship, the RSM in Georgia, and then Tigers tournament in December, as well as the Grant Thornton. And then we get started in Hawaii. And listen, I get, there's so many other sports options out there. Golf usually gets buried unless, it's a big tournament. But I really do enjoy the lead up to the Masters, the West Coast swing. I feel like those courses are so stunning. And I've said too, it's a shame. Like, I feel like Pebble Beach every year gets screwed because they play there in January. It's freezing. And it's like, they don't even need to play there like in July. But even if they played, now, or they played in April, like, it would be so much different. And it's like the whole reason too, is just because they don't want like people not available to play the Pro-Am. But it's like, you're really going to base it off the Pro-Am. I know it's like a tradition, but I don't know. I just feel like it just doesn't do a course like that justice to have it played in January and guys are wearing knit caps out there. It just doesn't seem like the right thing at all. So it'll be interesting to see in the future, if they change that. But it really is just unbelievable, some of the courses these guys get to play. So be interesting. And like I said, that stretch run will be exciting. So that'll start with the Century in January. And then a couple more on the way out here. Michael Butka saying Barnes, JJ Redick is like a Dan Hurley Jr. with that energy. Have I been to Georgia? I think passing through, but I've never done anything or got out another car, I think, even in Georgia. But it's interesting. I mean, it's so early with Redick. I was talking to Tony about this yesterday. You could see why, coming from Duke and just, I think it just has been kind of known, like, not a lot of people like Redick unless he's on your team. But, and I questioned that move initially, but I think because of his knowledge of the game and it seems like, the closest with LeBron and I'm sure the rest of the Lakers, I think it'll actually work out. I don't know what you think, but that's just kind of so early to tell, but I just kind of think it's going to work out.
I just think, like, I don't know if they'll make the finals, but
right.
But I think right off the bat, if you have a guy that the players can connect with, you're already a step in the right direction.
I mean, you just think about the upgrade of that compared to what you had with Darvin Ham. Like, it's just so it'll be interesting for sure. And also too, you think about basketball, especially all the basketball I've watched over the years, like, maybe it was different back in the day, but like an older player like LeBron, going on 40 years old before we know it. I mean, it's like, I don't remember ever, and I know obviously with AD, so it's a little different, but like a team winning a title with a player that old in the NBA as the lead guy. Like Dirk, I guess, but like even so, he had a lot of help from the role players on that team. The JJ Bareas and Sean Stevenson, Tyson Chandler. But it seems like it's just very difficult to win a title with a player that old for whatever reason.
Yeah. I think it's LeBron, so obviously it's a special situation.
Yeah, exactly.
But like,
exactly.
It's tough. It's very tough. I mean, basketball especially is a young person's game. You cannot be trotting around out there and hope to, play with guys like Anthony Edwards, the guys who are jumping out of the gym. So
yeah.
I think it'll be interesting to see how it goes this year, because it's the same team in some aspects, but like with JJ Redick and just everything that's been going on.
I think Dalton Connect as the season goes on. My big, and I was saying too, I mean, I'm sure it won't happen, but there's no way that it hasn't crossed through his mind, like Redick, like coming out of retirement. Cause I always thought him and LeBron were meant to play together, because he was just such a like spot up shooter. LeBron with his behind the back passes, like that would have seemed like it would have been a match made in heaven. Yeah, for sure. And LeBron has always had guys like that, so it's I don't know why they never did. I guess just it was a timing thing.
So
that's really what we got. Michael Bucket, Georgia borders South Carolina, Tennessee, Alabama, and Florida. Georgia is something I tell you. Would love to go to the Masters. Would love to go to the Mercedes-Benz Superdome as well. Definitely on the list, Michael. But that being said, here we are in another great show today. We really appreciate everybody who tuned in and continues to comment, like, and subscribe. All of the archives in the YouTube page, Tony, Michael, Renee, and Jane Costume, the merch at downtimetv.com. Want everybody to enjoy the day, enjoy the games. Let's go Rangers, and we will see you mañana.
Hey guys, Tony here from Downtime TV checking in. I want to thank all our fans out there who's been liking, subscribing, sharing our content. You guys are the best. You guys are our bloodline. You make us love what we do. Thanks again.